What a wild Saturday of college football we got yesterday, particularly in the SEC. Just some huge upsets, and the playoff picture has completely been turned upside down. We've got teams that we thought were safely in the playoff that now look like they're going to be out of it. We've got teams that we thought probably didn't have a chance that now have a chance. It's November chaos, and it's really been this way all month. I know I've talked about this before. September was crazy. October was quiet, but then November, I think it's been even crazier than September as these teams, again, the pressure builds. These teams, where's their motivation? Which teams are keeping their focus? You see this, and these games, the three games, the big games in the SEC, the big upsets, Florida, Ole Miss. I kind of saw that one coming. That one didn't shock me. Ole Miss has, not played great at times this year. They've been a little inconsistent, and that's been really the story across college football. A lot of these teams, inconsistent. But yeah, you look at Ole Miss, and they've been a little bit inconsistent. Florida has been on the rise. DJ Lagway back, and they've been playing really good football. So you can kind of see that one coming, the game in Gainesville. The Auburn-Texas A&M game, you could kind of see that one coming. Texas A&M looking ahead to Texas. Auburn been close on a lot of games. They finally get a home game at night. We talked about these games on the Upset Alert video last week. But the Alabama-Oklahoma game, that's the one that really surprised me. Not even that Oklahoma won, but the fact that they just completely dominated the game. So Alabama and Ole Miss likely eliminated from the playoff. That's my first takeaway. Yeah, Alabama's offense couldn't do anything. Jalen Milroe was terrible in this game. There is a blueprint for stopping Alabama's offense, and I don't know if I've talked about this maybe on this channel or not, but if you've got a good defensive line that can get pressure and can keep him in the pocket, or you've got an athletic linebacker that you can spy him with, Alabama's offense is not very tough to stop. Now, you have to have those pieces, and if you don't, you don't really have a chance because he is such a good runner, and they've got Ryan Williams making plays down the field and all that, but if you've got that, and Oklahoma did have that, you can slow down this Alabama offense. So that's why I talked about in the Upset Alert video them potentially having a chance in this game. But what really surprised me is the fact that they were held to 3 points. So Alabama only 3 points, and also the fact that Oklahoma moved the football in this game. Now, they didn't score a whole lot, and their defense was a big part of the reason they scored 21 points, or 24 points, whatever it was. But their offense was moving the ball, and they were keeping it away from Alabama. That is what surprised me, because their offense has been terrible all year long. And then this game, they found something. And so hats off to Oklahoma for the big win. And Ole Miss, again, falling to Florida. That one didn't surprise me as much. But when you look at the playoff picture, which is, again, my big takeaway here, it now appears that these teams are out of it. Now, as crazy as this week was, next week could be even crazier, and maybe there's still a shot. Maybe there's still a shot for these teams, especially Alabama, to get back in, because you have to look at where they were ranked. They were the team that was ahead of Miami. Ole Miss was not. So I'm not going to say they are completely out of it, but they are likely eliminated. And the thing with Alabama is now, you look at two of their losses, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Those are pretty bad losses. I mean, they're not horrible losses, but they're not to great teams. I would have a hard time with Alabama getting in the playoff, even with the wins over Georgia and LSU, which, again, doesn't look as great now. The other loss to Tennessee, of course, you can forgive them for that, but they've got two pretty bad losses. And Ole Miss now has a loss to Kentucky, that's a bad loss, and now a Florida team that, yeah, they're playing pretty well, but they're not ranked in the rank. They actually might be ranked this week. Who knows, because of the schedule they played. But yeah, these teams probably out of it. That opens the door for Tennessee. Now, if they win out, they're in. They are now in control, which they were not last week. They needed a little bit of help. They got it. And so the Vols should be in the playoff if they can get past Vanderbilt. And the other winner could possibly be the ACC. Let's go to our number 2 takeaway. The door is now open for 2 ACC teams to get in the playoff. Remember, Miami, the committee loves Miami. They've got them ranked pretty high. If they take care of business on Saturday and they lose to SMU in the ACC championship, SMU takes the automatic spot. Miami could get in there. I mean, how much do you drop for losing in a conference championship game if it's close? We have not seen this play out in the 12-team era, so we don't know what the committee is going to do. I think there's a real shot that Miami, if they lose that game, still gets in the playoff. Again, they got to take care of business against Syracuse. You look at Clemson sitting there with 2 losses. If they were to have a really impressive performance against South Carolina, Could they creep up into the playoff? Like, who's going to be in between a 2-loss South Carolina and a 3-loss Alabama or Ole Miss? That's going to be very interesting to see how this thing plays out. The committee's definitely going to have some decisions, and the way they rank the teams this week is going to tell us a ton. I mean, it's going to tell us a lot about how they view these teams going forward and which teams really have that shot. A 3-loss team, though, is, because of all this chaos, a 3-loss team is not completely out of it, but I still think it's going to be tough. And I think, again, this door is definitely open for the ACC to get 2 teams in. If the playoff if the season ended today and you just went by the rankings, I believe, and we'll see what they look like, but I believe SMU would get that final spot right now. I think that Alabama and Ole Miss will drop below SMU. They might not. And I think that would be, I mean, that's pretty bad if a 3-loss team is ranked ahead of a 1-loss Power 4 team. But that's going to be very key in this week's rankings. Will Alabama and Ole Miss drop behind SMU? If they do, I think the ACC is in a great spot to get 2 teams in the playoff. Unless, of course, we see an upset in the final game. SMU plays Cal. Miami plays Syracuse on the road. If we see an upset in one of those games, then I think you've got no chance unless Clemson somehow gets back into that conversation. So it's definitely a possibility. It's a possibility now for the ACC. For the Big 12, Arizona State and Iowa State now in control, it appears. Depending on how the final games go, the tiebreakers could change. But I've looked into this, and it seems pretty clear that if these teams win on Saturday, they will be in the Big 12 championship. So Arizona State, Iowa State then would be playing for a spot in the college football playoff. You still got Colorado in the picture, and you still got BYU in the picture. So who do they play this week? Of course, if 2 of these teams win and 2 lose, then those 2 teams that win will be in. The 2 teams that lose will be out. It's pretty easy. But what happens if 3 of them win or all 4 of them win? Again, if all 4 of them win, it should, I believe, be Iowa State and Arizona State. If 3 of them win, maybe the tiebreakers change, and we'll see. And there was actually an article that broke down every scenario, but I'm not going to go through it. You could probably just Google that and you'll find it. But you look at who they play this week. Colorado plays at home against Oklahoma State. That's a Friday game, Friday after Thanksgiving. You like their chances in that game. Then you look at Arizona State. They play on the road at Arizona, rivalry game, but you like Arizona's chances. They've been playing really good football as of late. You look at Iowa State. They'll play at home against Kansas State. That's going to be a pretty tough one. That's a potential loss for one of these teams. And then BYU has Houston at home. So, yeah, anything can happen. The Big 12, there's a lot of parity in this conference, and we'll see how it plays out. But if these teams all win, like I said, it looks like Arizona State and Iowa State. So we flip-flopped here. It looked like it was going to be Colorado, BYU. They were on top going into this week. Now they are outside the top 2. Iowa State and Arizona are the teams that are in. So that'll be interesting to watch. I do not see any scenario where the Big 12 gets 2 playoff teams in. And I also don't see a scenario where the Big 12 gets left out. I think even if Colorado wins the Big 12 with 3 losses, I think they're going to wind up ahead of Tulane if Tulane wins the American. Now that Army's lost, I don't see an American team getting in unless Boise State loses. So, yeah, I think the Big 12, if you're worried about getting a team in the playoff, they're going to get a team in. Unless if all 4 of those teams were to lose, then maybe then we're talking about Tulane possibly getting in. But that's probably not going to happen. Let's go to number 4 now. Indiana, they won't win a national championship. This team is not that good, but they will make the playoff. And, again, a lot of this is because of the help that they just got this week from the SEC. So they weren't really competitive in this game. They started off really well. Looked very competitive early in this game, but then Ohio State kind of flipped the script. Their defensive line, their pass rush just dominated. Indiana's offensive line couldn't handle them. And again, you see Indiana going up against a great team or a great defense. Even go back to the Michigan game, they're not going to be able to do a whole lot. So I don't think Indiana is going to win a national championship. If they get the right matchups, they could maybe win a game or 2 in the playoff. But I think we saw that this is just not a team that's on that level. But again, with some help from the SEC, I don't see any way Indiana doesn't get in. I think they're in the playoff. I mean, they should be pretty safely in as long as they take care of Purdue. So good news for Indiana there. But again, if you're hoping this team can maybe make a run at a national championship or something like that, they're just not quite to that level. Ohio State, they made some adjustments there. And also, Kurt Signetti with some extra time to prepare is a really good coach. And go back to Alabama. Look at how well Alabama has played with an extra bye week. They had that against LSU and against Georgia. Or first of all, against Georgia, then against LSU. But you look at Alabama the rest of the season, besides those two games, they haven't looked great. And so sometimes you just got to coach with, again, when they got some extra time to prepare, they're going to have their team prepared. But, a great start for Indiana. They just didn't have the talent to compete for 4 quarters with Ohio State, and that was clear. So now we've got, in my opinion, 5 teams that are locked into the college football playoff. I don't care if they lose on Saturday, they are in. So Oregon, clearly in. Ohio State, lose to Michigan, I still think they're in. Texas, lose to Texas A&M, they're still in. Penn State, they lose, I can't remember now who they play, Michigan State maybe. I still think they're in. And Notre Dame, even if they lose to USC, they're in. All of these teams are ranked high enough, and we've had enough chaos behind them that I think all of these teams are in the playoff. I mean, I guess there could be a crazy scenario where, let's say USC beats Notre Dame by 40. Okay, then maybe they're not in, but it's like 98% for all of these teams that they are in the college football playoff. I'd love to see what the FBI actually gives on their percentages, but I think they're all locked in, even with the loss in their final game. So you can expect, these 5 teams to get in. We know we'll have the Big 12 champion, so that's 6 spots right there. We know we'll have the ACC champion. That's 7 spots. We'll have the top group of 5 champion. That is 8 spots. And then perhaps another team wins the SEC other than Texas. Then you've got 9 spots filled. So you can see that there are only a few spots remaining and some big games coming up this weekend. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see what happens. And see if we get more chaos. Potentially, again, like a team like Alabama or Ole Miss, could they possibly climb back in with 3 losses if there's enough chaos? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to happen. So that's it for my takeaways from Week 13. Give me your takeaways down in the comments below.